Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I know we have a lot of people joining us across many time zones, so hello and welcome to all. Thanks for spending some time with us today as we talk about driving sales with targeted lead nurturing strategies. My name is Chad Collette, and I'm the Director of Marketing here at Ledgeview Partners, where we help businesses transform their approach to sales, marketing, and customer service by aligning these teams to focus on improving their customers' experience and providing management with metrics through technology to evaluate success. For those of you on the webinar today that are familiar with Ledgeview Partners, you may know that we are a Microsoft Dynamics CRM Gold partner, a Microsoft Office 365 partner, and a Salesforce Silver partner. In addition, Ledgeview provides a wide slate of marketing-related services, including a complete marketing analysis and technology selection, integration of your marketing automation solution with CRM, training, marketing asset, template creation, and much more. We're also partners with leading automation solutions like Act-On Software and ClickDimensions. You can visit our website at ledgewpartners.com/marketing services for more info on those services and the automation solution partners. Now, before I introduce our presenter for today, I have just a couple of quick housekeeping items to cover. First off, today's webinar is being recorded and will be available on demand after the live session. All attendees will receive a follow-up email after the webinar is complete with a link to access the presentation. We encourage you to share this within your company and your professional network. And to ensure the best audio quality, we have everyone on listen-only mode. But if you have a question or a comment, please submit those in the question pane of your GoToWebinar control panel. Now let me introduce our presenter for today. She's definitely a fan favorite, Jody Gilroy. Jody's title is CRM Application Consultant with Ledgeview Partners, but I like to refer to her as the Marketing Goddess. If you've not attended one of our marketing webinars in the past, you will soon learn why that title is a perfect fit. Today, Jody will be focusing on how to use lead nurturing to engage with prospects early in the sales cycle, using lead nurturing to continue to engage with sales and non-sales ready leads, and leveraging lead nurturing to re-engage with your customer base. Really excited to get rolling today. Jody, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Chad, and thanks for that nice intro. And welcome to everyone else that has joined the webinar today, Driving Sales with Targeted Lead Nurturing. All right, so let's get started. So according to Act-On research, 61% of B2B marketers are sending all leads, again, all leads directly to sales. And of those leads being sent, 27% of those are actually qualified or really want to talk to sales. So do you see a major issue associated with this? How likely is it that after time, your sales team will begin ignoring those leads because the majority are not producing sales for them? This session today will focus on the development of targeted lead nurturing strategies, leveraging the use of marketing automation and CRM technology to move leads from marketing qualified to sales qualified at various points in the sales funnel. Specifically, the topics we'll cover today include an overview of what is lead nurturing, if you're new to that, determining your lead nurturing goals, determining who to nurture as part of your programs. We'll talk about what to even include in a nurture campaign, types of nurture campaigns you could run, and tips for getting started with a lead nurturing program within your organization. And throughout this, the overarching theme of all the information presented will be around the goal of driving revenue through the use of lead nurturing process. So we'll discuss how to use lead nurturing to engage with prospects early in the sales cycle, using lead nurturing to continue to engage with sales and non-ready sales leads, and lead nurturing to engage with your current customer base. If you have adopted marketing automation systems such as Act-On, ClickDimensions, HubSpot, or Pardot, for example, you're probably familiar with the concept of nurturing or engagement, depending on how they call it. And that's my point. However, the way that it's labeled in your system may be different. Some systems refer to nurturing as lead nurturing, others as drip campaigns, maybe nurture programs, engagement campaigns, or just plain campaigns. So for the purpose of today's conversation, I will stick with the terminology lead nurturing, but keep in mind that this is synonymous with other terms used. While we jump into some definitions in the next slides, it's important to remember that lead nurturing is a jointed process by which sales and marketing are working together with the ultimate goal of customer conversions and sales increases. And before we dive into those lead nurturing definitions, let's first take a step back and look at just plain old lead definitions. A lead, by definition, is someone that you have identified or they have identified themselves as being a fit for your product or service. If we take this a level deeper and look at marketing qualified lead as someone who has raised their hand and identified themselves as being interested in learning more about your product or service, but maybe they're not necessarily ready to purchase yet. For example, let's pretend that you worked in the travel tour industry and I became a lead in your CRM and your marketing automation system. I became a lead when I filled out a form on your website indicating that I was interested in information on travel to Rome, Italy. On the form, I indicated that I had an interest in traveling to Italy the summer of 2018. Well, if this is a lead for your travel business, I wouldn't not consider this a hot lead that your sales team should be following up on immediately, primarily because my timeline is until 2018. However, this is certainly a marketing qualified lead, and the marketing department should have a set plan to nurture this lead with information about travel to Italy on their tours until the point in time that the triggers indicate that a one-to-one conversation is appropriate, and the lead, me, can be assigned to the sales team for follow-up. And most likely it's somewhere when I'm closer to 2018. The biggest change here is one of discipline and patience. Not every prospect that contacts you is ready to buy now. If you're currently sending all the leads to the sales team and they are quickly disqualifying them because they do not have an immediate buying intent, or if you have leads that have indicated they're not ready to purchase right now, what are you doing with them? Are you waiting for them to contact you when they are ready? Or maybe your sales team has a phone call reminder set up to touch base every 6 months? It is a mistake to ignore your prospects that are not ready to buy yet. In most cases, this prospect will purchase from either you or your competition within the next 24 months. So don't you want to find a way to stay connected and top of mind when they are ready? Lead nurturing lets you stay engaged. If you're new to this, it's imperative that you have a strong understanding of how these leads are converting into revenue for your business. To do this, you need to understand your target market, what their purchasing behaviors are, and how you can solve their problem. This is critical to knowing which leads need to be nurtured and who is ready for a sales call. While there is no set formula, and companies will have different criteria for what an MQL or a marketing qualified lead and SQL leads are defined as, the key takeaway is that it's important to have a definition within your organization rather than treating all leads equal. By aligning sales and marketing, the focus is on high-quality leads, which lead to increased conversion rates and a more efficient sales process. Okay, so with the definition of leads out of the way, what is the definition of lead nurturing? Lead nurturing is the process of cultivating leads that are not yet ready to buy. Successful lead nurturing anticipates the needs of the buyer based on who they are, such as their profile characteristics like title, role, industry, and so on, and where they are in the buying process. Nurturing keeps prospects engaged by providing the most relevant content, or engagement points, such as white papers, ebooks, webinars for their particular situation. Once prospects are in the funnel, nurturing them with helpful, relevant content moves potential buyers through each stage of consideration, at a natural pace until they're ready to be passed to the sales team. Nurturing is the safety net for every stage of the buying cycle, helping to ensure that no revenue opportunity is missed. So depending on the marketing automation tool you're using, the technology to create the nurture campaigns may be slightly different, but the overall concepts are the same. You are essentially developing a series of actions and communications based on behaviors. For example, if someone submits a certain form, that could be a trigger to add the prospect to the nurture program, or being added to a marketing list is another example. Once a person is entered into the program, we would then establish the targeted communications that should be sent to that prospect. Nurturing programs typically have time delays as well, so you control the timing of the send automatically. Nurture programs are a fantastic tool, as it affords you the ability to create targeted and automated communications at scale to your various audiences. Okay, with the definitions established and a sneak peek at the lead nurturing program structure, the next piece of the equation is establishing goals for nurture programs. Well, we'll get to a granular key performance indicators that are helpful to track when engaging in lead nurturing initiatives. Let's take this to a higher level discussion first. When establishing your goals, a joint discussion between your marketing and sales team should be taking place. Together, you need to determine what you are trying to accomplish. So you naturally say more sales. Well, yes, but to who? On what product or service? Is there a new market we're trying to penetrate? Asking key questions such as these will help you then to define your more specific lead nurturing KPIs, or key performance indicators. As you can see with these statistics, lead nurturing activities have been proven to make an impact on your marketing budget, but you will still want to establish your own set of goals and KPIs to measure. I believe for most organizations, these goals listed are fairly universal when it comes to lead nurturing programs. Using lead nurturing programs should help you to create better engagement with your prospects and customers, increase your conversion rates, and in turn, your sales opportunities and wins as an organization. These are examples of lead nurturing KPIs that you may want to set for each campaign you are executing. Take time as you're planning to set goals for these. And as you execute your campaigns, measure your desired versus your actual performance indicators. And if you're brand new to this, yes, it may be difficult to put some initial goal estimates together, but start somewhere and you can adjust as your nurturing matures over time. Now that we have established our goals, our next task is to determine who we will target with our nurture campaign. The type of nurturing that you are doing should be unique based on the target you are trying to reach. In our last webinar, we covered ways to segment your database. And segmentation is a critical piece of the nurturing equation. So you'll want to make sure you are creating clear segments based on things such as job title, role, industry, or even sales stages. This is critical because today's buyer-driven market creates prospects who are interested in educating themselves but are not yet ready to purchase. It's your job to make sure when they raise their hand and indicate interest that you communicate and engage in meaningful and relevant ways so that the content that you are sending resonates with the audience and they remain engaged with you. In order to create that relevant communication, you need to define your target first. Defining your target is more than stating, my target is anyone that wants to purchase my product. Yeah, of course, but that is not a target. To be successful with lead nurturing, you will need to identify your buyer groups, understand your buyer's concerns, what their purchasing process is, and how you as an organization solve their problems, and then how you will communicate that to them. We have focused the communication up to this point on the use of nurturing for prospects. Prospects being someone that you have not yet engaged as a customer yet. The good news is that nurturing isn't just for prospects. This technology can be leveraged in many different ways for both future, current, and past customers alike. For example, for new customers, you can enroll them in a welcome nurture program to further introduce them to your product or service that they just purchased. Ideally, you would personalize this to the product or service specifically that they did purchase, not just, welcome to your organization. Provide helpful and relevant information as you're sending these communications to them. In addition, you also may have the opportunity to create cross-selling to this new customer base. Another example is using nurturing to unengaged customers. After segmenting your database, you realize that you have a set of customers that have not purchased anything from you in over a year. You may want to pull this list and run a special promotional offer to entice re-engagement. What should my lead nurturing contain is a common question that I receive, so let's discuss that further. While the delivery channel for a lead nurturing program is primarily email-based, although it can contain other activities, it is important to remember that lead nurturing is much more than just email communication. Rather than a random and independent email sent out to a marketing list when the time feels right, a lead nurturing campaign is a series of communications with the intent of moving someone to another point in a sales stage, or to encourage them to complete an action. When setting up a lead nurturing campaign, each step should have a clear and concise goal or conversion point in mind when creating. To create those series of steps, ask yourselves these questions. First, what is this campaign for? Who is the campaign created for? What sales stages are we addressing? What will the triggers for entering the nurturing program be? And within the program, what triggers will move groups down different paths? What content will be aligned to the defined stages? And finally, what should our communication timing increments be based on our defined target audience and their buying patterns? Once you have completed a series of nurture campaigns, you'll want to analyze the past campaigns to determine how they performed against your KPIs, most notably the revenue generated from the campaign, and then make adjustments as needed for future campaigns. As noted earlier, the content that you choose to send should be aligned to the target audience you are trying to reach, as well as the sales stage that the prospect or the customer is currently in, or the one that you're trying to move them towards. Here's a list of content types that may be relevant to the nurture campaigns you will be building. These are just examples, and the list will vary depending on your audience and industry. The point is that the series of communication that you provide should be relevant to your group, and thus the need for multiple nurture programs. This is a really nice infographic from marketing automation provider Act-On that outlines a content strategy based on the sales stage. Well, there's a lot here and probably not going to be able to consume everything right now. The key is that you're responding to the needs of the buyer and positioning appropriate messaging and content based on the buyer's needs. The ultimate goal of all this is to drive sales for your organization. So can lead nurturing really do this? The data says yes. Businesses that use marketing automation to nurture prospects experience a 451% increase in qualified leads, and nurtured leads have shown to make 47% larger purchases than non-nurtured leads. So let me ask you, are you excited yet to get started with this kind of programming? Let's start to wrap up today's conversation by brainstorming some of the types of nurturing campaigns you may want to create within your organizations and picking a few to discuss in greater detail. So new customer campaigns are one type that we mentioned earlier and are a great way to make a connection with your new customers to further the loyalty of your brand. In addition, the stream of information that you can create with nurture programs will allow you to space out the timing of the messaging, not to overwhelm these new customers that you are onboarding. Educational engagement campaigns are great as they focus on providing content, primarily focused on bringing value to the lead you are nurturing. These are very commonly used with non-sales ready customers who are in the early consideration stage, and they are seeking information to help inform them of a decision. Being that source of thought leadership will help you as they move into the conversion stage of the sales cycle. Types of content used in these types of nurture campaigns can include ebooks, blog posts, white papers, videos, webinars, and even infographics, among other types of content. All right, switching, let's talk about product-focused nurture campaigns. They're another type of campaign you could potentially deploy. When a customer has explicitly stated the type of product they are interested in, this is fantastic segmentation criteria. Focusing on providing information relevant to the product, including how your product will help the customer testimonials, sell sheets, case studies, are all great components of a product-focused nurture campaign. Finally, promotional nurturing campaigns can help to push a lead through the line of the sales funnel. As your leads move closer to the conversion stage of our sales funnel, consider executing a promotional campaign to make the final step just a little bit easier. Offering special pricing or discount add-on features are ways to help the customer along, and the nurture program can be used to execute this communication. This slide and the next offer additional nurturing examples, including a nurture campaign just focus on loyalty and retention of your current customer base. If you do webinars, post-webinar nurturing to stay in contact or offer additional webinar series that you'll be offering. Influencer relations, maybe even survey management. If you want to send out a survey to new customers or people that have attended your webinar, you could use nurturing for survey management. You can also use it for product upsell and cross-sell opportunities. Product usage communications. And then even get a little bit more maybe out of the box, you could potentially use this internally for corporate or internal communications. Just think of a new employee onboarding process. You potentially could leverage nurture campaigns for that. So I know you're eager to get your own nurture campaigns started. So let's wrap up today's conversation with some final takeaways. All right, this is how you get started. First, get your marketing and your sales teams together to determine what type of campaigns you would like to establish. Next, select your target group and set your campaign goals. Start small and grow your efforts as you become more comfortable with your strategy and have metrics to assess successes and failures. Step 5. Grab a pen and paper or whiteboard and sketch out the series of communication you plan to send. Consider this your blueprint before you build in your actual marketing automation program. Next, align and identify proper content. And then finally, step 7, go ahead and get in your marketing automation system and start building and deploying your nurture program. You've set all the appropriate stages to be able to do that at that point. And then finally, like any good marketing program, make sure to measure effectiveness and then expand on successes. All right, so this wraps up today's webinar. I hope you have enjoyed the conversation today. If you do have any questions, feel free to submit them in the question pane and we'll follow up with you after the webinar. I will turn it back over to Chad to wrap up today's call.
Thank you very much, Jody. That was some fantastic information, and we really appreciate you taking the time to deliver that information. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Again, look for your email to contain a link to the on-demand presentation. Next week, we are going to shift gears from a lead focus on marketing to an account-based marketing focus. Hopefully, you can join our webinar next week on September 28th with our partners at Act On Software. During this one, we focus on account-based marketing, where we'll talk about 6 steps to kickstart your first ABM program, 5 principles to make your account-based marketing program more focused, practical, and profitable, as well as what to avoid when you're talking about account-based marketing pitfalls. So, thank you very much for joining us. Have a great day.